Good afternoon, everyone. We are convening our Tuesday, October 11th land use meeting and public hearing. Calling it to order, please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Attorney Pratt, do we have certification of the agenda today?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Chris Pratt with the Attorney's Office. 3 items on your agenda this evening, or this afternoon, that required notice. The resolution approving the second amendment to the service plan for the Sierra Ridge Metropolitan District Number 1 and Sierra Ridge Metropolitan District Number 2, project file SV 2022-002. This item had mailed notice accomplished on the 14th of September and published notice accomplished on the 15th of September. And then the Vista Hills Minor Development Project SV 2022-001 had signed posted notice accomplished September 16th and published notice accomplished September 15th. And then the Sterling Ranch Preliminary Plan Number 7, project file SB 2021-057. This item was continued from your 9/27 2022 meeting. All of these items have been properly noticed, and you have jurisdiction to hear them today.
Thank you, Attorney Pratt. Do any commissioners have disclosures for items on this agenda today?
I don't.
No, sir.
And I have none. With that, we will move to item 2, which is our land use and meeting agenda items. We have no items in land use today. So we'll move to item 3, our public hearing agenda items. Item 3A is a resolution approving a second amendment to the service plan for the Sierra Ridge Metropolitan District Number 1 and Sierra Ridge Metropolitan District Number 2, project file SV 2022-002. Lauren Pulver presenting for staff. Hi, Lauren.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. The project before you is a service plan second amendment for Sierra Ridge Metropolitan Districts numbers 1 and 2. The project number is SV 2022-002. I'm Lauren Pulver representing Planning Resources. The applicant representative, Russell Dykstra with Spencer Fain, is here as well. The application is a request for approval of a service plan second amendment for Sierra Ridge Metropolitan Districts numbers 1 and 2 for the purposes of adjusting the operations and maintenance mill levy to 20 mills, with the mill levy cap increasing from 60 mills to 70 mills. The amendment also proposes authorizing District Number 2 with powers originally assigned to District Number 1 in the event District Number 1 dissolves. The Board of County Commissioners created and adopted guidelines for processing and reviewing special district service plan applications, the intent of which is to provide for the process and review of service plan applications, service plan amendment applications, and service plan consolidation applications in accordance with Title 32 of the Colorado Revised Statutes. The process begins with the submittal of an application. The request is prepared by staff and forwarded to referral agencies for comment. Staff further analyzes the request, and the applicant has the opportunity to resolve any issues identified through the referral period. The request is reviewed by the Planning Commission at a public meeting, and following public notice, the request is heard before the Board of County Commissioners. On September 12, 2022, the Planning Commission heard the service plan amendment at a public meeting and recommended approval by a vote of 5-0. No public comments were received. The districts are located in the municipal planning area inclusive of county as defined in the 2040 Comprehensive Master Plan. The districts are zoned planned development and outlined on the slide above. District Number 2 encompasses the entire project, but District Number 2 consists of 0.014 acres in the northwest portion of the project. You'll see the red dot on the left-hand side of that blue square. The district service plan was approved in 2005 with a first amendment to increase debt limit approved in 2016. The district's residential construction is complete with 903 single-family homes and 264 multifamily apartment units. The district's original mill levy cap is 50 mills. The proposed second amendment will increase the operations and maintenance mill levy from 10 mills to 20 mills and increase the total mill levy cap to 70 mills. The Colorado Revised Statutes specify criteria for approval of special district service plans. The board must consider the following 9 criteria in evaluating the service plan. In response to number 1, the area encompassed by the district's boundaries is zoned for planned development and residential development is complete. As a result, the site will continue to need the services and facilities provided by the districts. In response to number 2, at the time the original service plan was approved, services for the proposed development were inadequate. The property is served by the districts, and no changes are proposed for the existing services. Number 3, the proposed amendment does not contain changes to the maximum debt limit. Number 4, the proposed amendment does not contain changes impacting the district's ability to discharge its authorized indebtedness on a reasonable basis. In response to number 4, the districts will continue to fulfill the services for the existing and proposed development. Number 6, all facilities will continue to be constructed in accordance with the standards of the county and any other applicable state, local, or federal rules and regulations. Number 7, the districts are located within the municipal planning area inclusive of county primary urban area as defined in the 2040 Comprehensive Master Plan, and the current and proposed land use for this area fall within these guidelines. Number 8, at the time the original service plan was approved, the district was in compliance with the Colorado Clean Water Plan. And number 9, at the time the original service plan was approved, the property required services from either an adjacent municipality, an adjoining special district, or a new district. In this case, since the land is under county jurisdiction and neither the county, nearby municipalities, nor nearby districts had the capability or interest in providing services, the new districts were formed. The districts will continue to provide services to the existing and proposed development. In staff's assessment, the application complies with the criteria found at CRS sections 32(1), 203, 2A, and B, and 2.5, and the service plan amendment may be approved. This concludes staff's presentation. The applicant representative is also here with a brief presentation.
Thank you, Lauren, for that. Any questions for staff? Okay, I don't have any either. Would the applicant like to make its presentation, please? If you'll just state your name and where you're from for the record.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Russ Dykstra, 1700 Lincoln Street, Denver, Colorado, on behalf of the petitioner, Sierra Ridge Metro Districts 1 and 2. We can just go to the next one. Oftentimes when we're before you on Metro District matters, we're here on behalf of developers forming new Metro Districts with plans and proposals of what it's going to look like 20 years from now. It's fun to be here today in front of you when we've gotten to that 20-year point, and we now have residents in control of the board, and they are making decisions on behalf of the residents and taxpayers within the districts. I don't want to skip over the first bullet point, which is a very important one. 4 years ago, residents became the controlling board members for the district number 2, which is the bulk of the property in the project, and have been since that time making all of the relevant decisions on behalf of the districts, with District 1, that small parcel, and the developer representatives just assisting in that transition to the point where the last year or so they've virtually been inactive. They haven't done a whole lot except for as needed. Part of this service plan contemplated that District 1 would be ultimately the operations and management district for the project. We anticipate within the next 6 months to a year that District 1 will be completely dissolved and District 2 will be on its own. So we just wanted to clarify in the service plan that that's the transition that will be happening and that District 2 will be responsible going forward. The second part of it is equally exciting. Not normally when we're talking about changing the mill levy, it's to increase it. In this case, the district very successfully, and I might say very fortunately, timed a refunding of its bonds earlier this year and got an excellent rate, and are going to be able to drop their mill levy about 20 full mills on their debt service, which is significant. And at that point, that's a 20% savings for the residents and taxpayers. If you want to go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So The board, after that refunding, said, okay, we're in this point where we're going to start really incurring a lot of costs. The home builders have done their part and are no longer maintaining some of these areas. I don't know if you've driven through Sierra Ridge, but it's a beautiful community. It has a pool, a clubhouse, 2 very large parks, and some incredible landscaping features as well throughout. And in order to maintain that, the board went through a pretty extensive analysis of, do we increase fees to the residents, or is it wiser, in light of the lowering of the debt service mill levy, to increase the O&M mill levy slightly to make that up? The board landed on this course of action for the big reason that it's much more efficient to collect those costs through property tax collections than having a management company send out invoices, trying to collect those, trying to collect delinquent, unpaid fees, et cetera. So that's where we ended up. And in total, we're going to end up, we haven't gotten the final assessed valuations for this year, but we think it's going to be in aggregate about a 15 mil reduction for the residents, even with this increase in the O&M mill levy. So we feel it's a very big win-win for everybody involved. Next, please. And these are just some of the amenities that have to be taken care of by the district. I'm not sure if you're aware, but there is no HOA for this area, so the district does the covenant enforcement, which is a significant undertaking. We have drainage ways and, like I said earlier, the parks and the landscape areas. I also have 2 resident members of the board, Robert Drucker and Ken McMillan, who have both served on the board for 4 years, are available for questions if you have them.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Dykstra. Any questions for the applicant?
I would just like to say that as I've been listening to you, I've been watching the 2 gentlemen in the front row here that you were sitting with, and one of them's got a big grin on his face, and the other one is looking at the other, but I can tell how happy they are. It looks like these board members have worked hard to get to this point.
Yes, they have, and they've earned the appreciation, so thank you for that.
So thank you for being here, gentlemen. I have no questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Additional comments or questions, Commissioner Teal?
No questions.
And none for me either. So with that, let me open it up for any citizen comment, either in person or online. Is there any citizen comment?
Commissioner, I have no online comment.
Okay, and with that, I'll close citizen comment and bring it back to the board for any further discussion and or a motion.
You know, over the last several years, I know the commissioners, but also not only as a commissioner, but in my prior experience as a member of the Castle Rock Town Council, you have received a lot of feedback from folks who are part of metro districts, and not all of it positive. And it usually revolved around these ideas of increasing mill levy and usually O&M, where it's very serious, it's very necessary, and folks often portrayed it as, you know, oh, you guys on the council, you guys on the Board of County Commissioners, you're raising my taxes. You didn't tell me. I didn't get a chance to vote on that. And having to educate them on, well, now hang on, that's your metro district. That is actually the lowest form of quasi-governmental control that you have. Have you been to those board meetings? Have you served on that board? And knowing that I have 2 board members here for this district, I'm sure maybe that's where you gentlemen started your journey to being on the board. But I'm sure you've probably heard similar from your own residents. And so it was having been through a metro district that also went through a refinancing in 2019, that was tumultuous within the community, and a lot of questions, because we did actually extend debt out in order to avoid balloon payments. It became contentious. So I'm really glad to see you guys here today doing the right thing in terms of not only, making those cuts to your mill levy, but then doing the hard math on the O&M side in order to come up with something that is sustainable for the folks that you represent. So well done all. And if it does please the board, I do have a motion to approve a resolution approving Second Amendment to the service plan for the Sierra Ridge Metropolitan District Number 1 and Sierra Ridge Metropolitan District Number 2. Project file is SV2022-002.
Second.
So there's a first and second on the floor. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that carries. Thank you, Lauren, and congratulations. With that, we'll move to item 3B, which is Vista Hills Minor Development, project file SB 2022-001. Mike Pasica presenting for staff. Hi, Mike.
Thank you, Chairman Layden. Mike Pasica, representing Planning Services, and the project before you is a residential minor development final plat, project number SB 2022-001. The property owners are Michael and Amy Joggeman, represented by Kevin Archer of Archer and Associates. The applicant is requesting a minor development to subdivide a 36.93 acre parcel into 7 residential lots and 2 tracts for Flintwood Road and State Highway 86 right-of-way dedication. Lot sizes range from 5 acres to 5.61 acres. There will be 1 new access to the subdivision for Flintwood Road, and the access to the existing home will remain. Tract A is 0.5 acres in size and is to be dedicated to Douglas County as right-of-way for Flintwood Road. And Tract B is 0.36 acres in size and is to be dedicated to Douglas County and then conveyed to CDOT for State Highway 86 right-of-way. The intent of the minor development is to provide a streamlined review process for the creation of 10 or fewer single-family residential lots. The minor development plat process begins with the submittal of an application. Following a review period by referral agencies and the public, public hearings are held before the Planning Commission and Board of County Commissioners. Just run through a few referral responses received during the referral process. The Colorado Geological Survey indicated they had no concerns with the proposed subdivision. Tri-County Health requested 10,000 square foot leach field envelopes be placed on lots 1 and 3 due to limited suitable area for on-site wastewater treatment systems. Engineered treatment systems will be necessary to address limiting subsurface conditions on lots 1 and 3 as reflected by note number 7 on the minor development final plat. Franktown Fire responded and requested that roads be constructed to Douglas County standards and maintained for year-round emergency services. Prior to recordation of the minor development plat, the applicant will be required to record an easement and maintenance agreement for the internal access drive that includes a provision for snow removal that all property owners will be a party to. Proposed water service will be by individual wells. The application meets the criteria of Section 18A, which requires demonstration of an adequate and sufficient water supply for the proposed subdivision. And there have been no public comments received on this application. The Planning Commission heard the proposal on October 3rd, 2022, and recommended approval by a vote of 5-0. No one from the public spoke in favor of or against the application. This is the vicinity map of the area. The property is highlighted with the red star in the far eastern area of the county. And the property is outlined in red. It's zoned to rural residential. There's agricultural zoning to the north, rural residential and agricultural zoning to the south, agricultural 1 and large rural residential zoning to the east, and rural residential zoning to the west. And this is the aerial view of the project site. Again, it's outlined in red. Located approximately 500 feet north of the intersection of State Highway 86 and Flintwood Road. There are agricultural and single-family uses surrounding the site, and the Franktown Fire Station number 183 directly to the south, just at the bottom of the aerial photograph there. And there are 2 existing access points on the property, as noted earlier. The access for the existing home will remain. The new access for the subdivision will be located generally in the location of the second existing access point noted on this slide. The property was initially zoned from agricultural to residential in 1955 with the establishment of zoning in the county. In 2019, the property was rezoned to rural residential. The property is currently unplatted with an existing home that was constructed in 1982. There's an existing communications tower on the site within proposed Lot 3. And there are 2 existing communication towers and the Franktown Fire Station number 183 on the adjacent property to the south. This exhibit shows the proposed 7-lot subdivision minor development plat. North on the picture is to the left. Tracks A and B are shown and will be dedicated to the county and CDOT for future expansion of Flintwood Road and State Highway 86 respectively. Access to the subdivision is proposed from Flintwood Road. There will be no access from State Highway 86. In addition, building envelopes and no-build areas will be established on lots to limit site disturbance on steep slopes, preserve natural vegetation, avoid drainage easements, and provide tower fall areas for the existing communication towers. Quickly run through some pictures. This is from Flintwood Road looking to the south. You can see the 2 communication towers and the Franktown Fire Station on that lot to the south. And this is to the southwest from Flintwood Road. There's an existing drainage area running through the center of the picture. And this is looking to the west at the other existing communication tower and some accessory structures. And this view looks north along Flintwood Road, again, at some existing accessory structures on the left. And this view looks directly east across Flintwood Road at an agricultural property. This slide lists the approval standards for a minor development final plat. Staff's assessment of these standards are discussed in detail on pages 10 through 14 of the staff report. Staff has evaluated the minor development final plat in accordance with Article 6 of the Douglas County Subdivision Resolution. Should the board find that the approval standards for the minor development final plat are met, the following proposed conditions should be considered for inclusion in the motion. Condition number 1, prior to recordation of the minor development final plat, the private access and maintenance agreement shall be executed and recorded. Condition number 2, prior to recordation of the minor development final plat, technical corrections to the plat exhibit shall be made to the satisfaction of Douglas County. Condition number 3, prior to recordation of the minor development final plat, cash in lieu of school land dedication in the amount of $3,000 shall be paid by the applicant. Condition number 4, prior to recordation of the minor development final plat, cash in lieu of park land dedication in the amount of $1,500 shall be paid by the applicant. And condition number 5, all commitments and promises made by the applicant or the applicant's representative during the public hearing and or agreed to in writing and included in the public record have been relied upon by the Board of County Commissioners in approving the application. Therefore, such approval is conditioned upon the applicant's satisfaction of all such commitments and promises. Section 604.08 of the subdivision resolution sets forth the parameters for the board's decision on minor development plat requests as noted on this slide. And this concludes my presentation. I can take questions, otherwise the applicant does have a presentation they'd like to make.
Great. Thank you so much, Mike. Any questions for staff?
Mike, I do have one question. Thank you for that presentation. It appears that the only response was from the Franktown Citizen Coalition, and their comment was that as long as it stayed rural residential, they had no concerns. Is that correct?
That is correct, Commissioner.
Thank you. I have no other questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Additional questions or comments from the board? Okay. Let's open it up for the applicant. If you want to just state your name and where you're from, please.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Amy Jageman. Spelling of the last name is Jagemann.
And Michael Jageman.
Today we wanted to take a few minutes to, okay, thank you. Talk to you about the background of the project, share our objective, explain what we've done for neighborhood communication and talking with our neighbors, and then Kevin will address referral comments and approval standards. Next slide. So we purchased the property back in 2016. We've lived there for about 6.5 years. We've made some improvements to the property, that being removing some of the inactive towers. So there were 2 towers that were not active on the property, and we removed those. The one that is there will remain for the railroad, and there is no income potential or income from that tower. And the property was approved for rezoning in 2019 to rural residential. Today, we seek approval for the subdivision final plat before you. Myself and Mike and Kevin from Archer & Associates have worked very closely with the county to address any concerns in areas needing additional attention. The project has been in process since the rezoning approval in 2019, and the project adheres to the Franktown Master Plan guidelines. The adjacent neighbors and landowners were sent letters explaining our plans and intention dated December 12th of 2021. We received no feedback or follow-up comments. Kevin will take over from here.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is Kevin Archer, A-R-C-H-E-R, address 105 Wilcox, Castle Rock, Colorado. As we worked through the process, staff was helpful, so I want to give them a shout out and thanks for helping us navigate the process. After the project went out on referral, we received some referral comments, and I'll kind of quickly go through how each of those were addressed. The Cherry Creek Basin. Open to the. Do you have that? Oh, you got it. Okay. Sorry. Cherry Creek Basin Water Quality Authority generally requires water quality ponds and detention facilities. We applied for an exclusion from those requirements through the county engineering department. In this case, the project is relatively small excavation footprint, generally for a short private road. And in that case, water quality can be handled through the roadside ditches as part of that construction. Colorado Department of Transportation kind of required a cultural resource survey and a stormwater management plan. The cultural resource survey was completed. No items of significance were found through that survey. Stormwater management plan was prepared and approved through Douglas County Engineering. Colorado Division of Water Resources, their basic comment was that future wells shall be permitted as required. Colorado Geological Survey, as Mike indicated earlier, we performed preliminary soils tests, and the Colorado Geological Survey reviewed those and had no concerns for the property. Core Electric, we worked with Core to provide easements that they requested. So those are indicated on the plat, and Core is happy with that. The Douglas County Conservation District, again, required a stormwater management plan, and as mentioned earlier, that was prepared. Douglas County Historic Preservation, Cultural Resource Survey, as mentioned earlier, was completed and approved, and no findings, nothing was found on the property. Douglas County School District, as one of the conditions, $500 for each new lot was agreed to. Engineering Services addressed all comments to their satisfaction. Franktown Fire, as Mike mentioned, also they just wanted a maintenance agreement to assure that the private drive will have year-round access and maintenance. Tri-County Health, again, as Mike mentioned, they requested some 10,000 square foot leach field envelopes. We met with Warren Brown and another representative of Tri-County on the site, walked the area, and located the leach field areas to their satisfaction. And they also requested some final plat notes, as Mike mentioned, so those are also included on the plat. Wildfire mitigation, a wildfire plan was prepared and approved through the county. All the rest of the referral agencies either had no comment, and you mentioned one today that we hadn't heard before, but also no comment. So the next part, the approval standards, I'll just kind of quickly run through those approval standards. 6031 conforms with the goals, objectives, and policies of the master plan. A couple of years ago in 2019, we went through the rezoning process from Ag 1 to rural residential, and I think we pretty well vetted all that stuff out, so I won't go through that in detail. 603.2 addresses design elements established in the 404 preliminary plan. So run through that. Lots of appropriate size and configuration for the sites, characteristics, intended uses, otherwise capable of meeting minimum zone district standards such as lot size, setbacks, off-street parking. In this case, the lots are 5 acres and provides adequate room to meet all those requirements. 40402, geologic hazards, floodplains, wildlife, and other hazards conditions are mitigated or avoided. The site does contain some fairly steep and deep drainage ways. There's not a lot of water in those drainage ways because we're pretty well set at the top of a hill. But we've added building envelopes and easements to protect those drainage ways. And as further review as the project continues, the building permit stage, we'll look at the lots in detail. Again, the wildfire mitigation plan has been submitted and approved. Condition 404.3, conflicts between proposed surrounding land uses are minimized through lot and tract orientation, setbacks, landscaping, and other buffering techniques. We don't anticipate any conflicts with the surrounding properties. The neighbors have been notified and no concerns were relayed to us. The properties adjacent and west of the site are already 5-acre lots, and there will be no special landscaping or buffering proposed. 404.4, streets and stormwater facilities are laid out with the ability to meet Douglas County roadway design and construction standards, storm drainage design, technical criteria manual, and other applicable county regulations. The proposed subdivision, as Mike mentioned, will be accessed off of Flintwood Drive with a private road and access easements from that private road to the various lots. Drainage through the site will follow all the existing natural drainage ways, with the only real improvement being roadside ditches for the short section of private drive. Elements of the site's natural terrain, drainage ways, riparian areas, and vegetation are preserved or integrated into the subdivision layout. And again, we've got 5-acre lots, which allows us to preserve most of the drainage ways with very little disturbance. 404.6, archaeological and historical resources of special significance are protected. Again, we did the cultural resource survey, and there was nothing of significance found during that. 404.7, opportunities for safe and convenient vehicular, pedestrian, and other connections within the subdivision and adjacent neighborhoods, shopping, employment, and recreational areas are provided. In this case, really just a connection to the existing road system will provide access to the shopping and recreation facilities in the area. There's no existing trails in the immediate area of the property. 404.8, specific recommendations of other required development reports or technical studies are implemented through the design and future construction on the property. The recommendations provided in the soils report, traffic study, and drainage reports will be followed. Conforms with Section 18A, the Water Supply Overlay District of the zoning resolution. As we've moved through the review process, and Mike noted earlier, 18A is being conformed with this project. Provides for public wastewater collection and treatment system, and if other methods of wastewater collection and treatment are proposed, such systems shall comply with state and local laws and regulations. As mentioned earlier, Tri-County has reviewed the area, notes and septic areas have been added to the plat, and as buildings are proposed on each site, the OWTS systems for each particular site will be reviewed and approved through the building permit process. 60305 identifies all areas of the proposed subdivision which may involve soil or topographical conditions presenting hazards or requiring special precautions, and the proposed uses of these areas are compatible with such conditions. The Colorado Geological Survey didn't identify any issues, but recommended detailed study prior to construction, which will happen with DESC plans as part of the building permit. Adequate drainage improvements. The subdivision, as mentioned earlier, doesn't require anything specific except for the roadside ditches. And at the time of a building permit, the DESC plan will identify and provide proper drainage for the proposed buildings. Provide adequate transportation improvements. All the lots will access from a private drive off of Flintwood Road. The existing residents will continue to be accessed from the existing driveway. Flintwood Road will require no future improvements. Has available all necessary services, including fire and police protection, recreation facilities, utility service facilities, streets, and open space to serve the proposed subdivision. All of the required services to serve the property are already in place, and nothing new has been identified through the review process. Protect significant cultural, agricultural, natural, and historical resources and unique landforms. Again, the cultural resource survey has been completed, and no resources were found on the site, and the property has no unique landforms. Demonstrates the extraction of any known commercial mining deposit shall not be impeded. Through the soils tests and whatnot, no commercial mining deposits were found on the property. And through the mineral rights owners notification process, we were unable to find any mineral rights owners. And with that, we're available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. Let me just ask the applicant, are you comfortable with the three conditions as presented? Yes. You are, okay. And then this isn't a question for the applicant, but for staff, for Mike.
It's 5.
What's that?
5 conditions.
Is it 5 conditions or 3?
It was 5.
The 5, okay. Are you comfortable with all 5? Okay, thanks. So, Mike, a letter was referenced from the Franktown Citizens Coalition, and I know that we saw the comments in the referral report. Are you able to pull up the actual correspondence, or was it just a comment from them?
The correspondence with the Franktown Citizens Coalition was just initially they just said they had no comments in an email to me, and I followed up with a phone call, and then they indicated that as long as it conformed with the underlying rural residential zoning, they had no issues.
Okay, I was digging through looking for a letter and I couldn't find it, so that's helpful. So
My apologies.
Oh no, it's fine. Just a phone call. Okay, further questions or comments for the applicant or staff?
I have none.
None here.
Okay, so with that, let me open it up for any citizen comment. Is there any citizen comment either in the room or online with regard to this item?
Commissioner, I have no online comment.
Okay, thank you, Troy. With that, I'll close citizen comment and bring it back to the board for any further discussion and or a motion.
I have a motion to approve Vista Hills minor development because it does meet all of the approval criteria with 5 conditions as presented. Project file SB 2022-001.
Second in which speak in favor of the motion.
Please.
I think this is great. I mean, I would hope that Douglas County is still a place where folks can have a larger piece of land and subdivide it down in order to capitalize on their own property. I mean, this is the essence of property rights. So many times here we hear from these very large commercial interests, and you know that's okay too. I mean, we hold them accountable for our own design and development standards. But it actually really makes me proud that we're a county where, yeah, folks like yourselves, who own a piece of land, you can come before us and ask to capitalize on that land and, make the most of your property. So, listen, I congratulate you for taking the opportunity, and I speak in favor of the motion, so hope I get to congratulate you soon.
Okay, so we have a first and second on the floor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
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 Aye, and that carries 3-0. Congratulations. And with that, we'll move to our last item on our public hearing today. It's Sterling Ranch Preliminary Plan Number 7, Project File SB 2021-057. Brett Thomas presenting for staff. Hi, Brett.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Brett Thomas for Planning Services. Project before you is Sterling Ranch Preliminary Plan Number 7, project number SB 2021-057. Sterling Ranch LLC is the owner, and Susan Beckman is the project representative. The applicant proposes 1,667 residential lots, 5 super block lots for future development, 117 tracts, and associated public roads and private alleys on 465.63 acres. Of the 1,667 residential lots, 1,087 will be single-family detached lots, and 580 will be duplex or townhome lots. The intent of the preliminary plan process is to provide an in-depth analysis of the proposed subdivision, including a review of the design, considering the ability to obtain water and sanitation, identify geologic hazards, environmentally sensitive areas, wildlife habitat areas, source of required services, vehicular and pedestrian circulation, storm drainage and water quality, relationship to surrounding land uses, and conformance with the master plan. The preliminary plan process begins with submittal of an application. Following a review period by referral agencies and the public, there are public hearings before the Planning Commission and Board of County Commissioners. The Planning Commission considered the applicant's request for approval at a public hearing on October 3rd. Commissioners asked the applicant questions regarding sufficiency of water supply. The applicant confirmed that the supply is adequate using either the new or amended demand standards. The applicant answered questions regarding comparable water usage data for other jurisdictions and the number of accounts monitored for purposes of defining the reduced water demand standards. The water budget allocations to existing homeowners are consistent with the lower water demand standards. The water budget allocation, the applicant indicated that it has and will meet the 3 conditions noted in the Colorado Division of Water Resources letter. Commissioners asked several questions regarding the amount of data, whether the data is adequate, and how monitoring might be accomplished. To address some of the concerns about verifying the lower demand standards, the Sterling Ranch Community Authority Board, or the CAB, committed on the record to monitor usage annually through 2025. Dominion also explained various details of its water plan, including existing and future supplies. The county's water consultant spoke at the hearing and verified its recommendations. Commissioners asked final questions about opportunities for commercial development, potential for a future sheriff substation, and status of the wastewater treatment plant. No members of the public spoke at the hearing. The Planning Commission recommended approval of the preliminary plan, subject to the 5 conditions proposed by staff, by a vote of 6-0. The Planning Commission supported the request for the lower retroactive water demand standards, with the applicant's commitment that the CAB provide annual water usage reports to the county through 2025. The site is located in the northwest portion of Douglas County, between Chatfield State Park and Roxborough State Park. More specifically, the site is west of US Highway 85, south of Titan Road, within the Sterling Ranch development. The site is located along Roxborough Park Road, beginning approximately 4,000 feet south of its intersection with Titan Road. Portions of Sterling Ranch Filings 4C, 5A, and 5B are located east of the site across land owned by Denver Water. Unplatted portions of the Sterling Ranch development are located to the north of the site, across land owned by Public Service Company of Colorado for transmission lines. Additional unplatted portions of the Sterling Ranch development are located south of the site. The proposed school site, Tract EF, is located in the northwest portion of the preliminary plan, south of agricultural property, east of land also owned by Piesco. The site was rezoned from Agricultural 1 and Rural Residential to Planned Development with approval of the Sterling Ranch PD by the board in July of 2013. At the time of PD approval, the board also approved the Sterling Ranch Water Appeal, which established alternative water supply documentation, demand standards, and other requirements related to water for Sterling Ranch. In 2021, the board approved the amended and restated Sterling Ranch Water Appeal, which, among other things, allowed for the CAB to propose alternate minimum water demand standards as part of future development applications. 6 other preliminary plans and related final plats have been approved for the Sterling Ranch PD. At this point in time, 3,596 residential lots have been approved. 471 of those are pending final plat recordation. This application proposes 1,667 residential lots, 5 superblock lots, and 117 tracts. Tract EF is proposed as a 12.12 acre school site located in the northwest portion of the preliminary plan. 3 of the superblock lots are proposed along Sterling Ranch Avenue for future commercial or residential uses. 2 additional superblock lots are proposed in the northwest portion of the preliminary plan as a commercial or residential buffer between the proposed school site on Tract EF and the existing transmission lines. The superblock lots are included in the preliminary plan for subdivision design purposes only. Further development within these superblock lots will trigger additional land use processes, including a determination of water supply adequacy. Portions of 2 regional parks, Burns Regional Park on the east and Heritage Regional Park in the west, are proposed to be part of the preliminary plan. Here's a view looking west into the site from Roxborough Park Road. This photo is taken in the general location of the proposed intersection with Sterling Ranch Avenue. Here is a view looking northwest into the site from the intersection of Roxborough Park Road and the Waterton Road extension. The drainage for East Willow Creek is visible in the distance. Here's a view looking north from the Excel transmission line towards the school site proposed within Tract EF. And here's a view looking west into the site from Middle Fork Street within Sterling Ranch Filing 4C. These are the approval standards for a preliminary plan, which are discussed in detail in the staff report. Most referral comments were standard in nature. More specific comments from the Douglas County School District and Chatfield Community Association were received. Throughout the preliminary plan process, the school district and applicant had several meetings to resolve issues surrounding the suitability of Tract EF for future development as a school site. On September 20th, an updated letter from the school district was provided to the county, which outlines various improvements that were requested by the district and agreed upon by the applicant. Preliminary plan note number 17 captures some of these requirements, including the removal of the Dominion Water and Sanitation District director's parcel from the school tract, and a commitment for overlot grading prior to or with the minor development final plat for Tract EF. The preliminary plan exhibit has also been revised to provide for 2 points of access and the removal of a proposed regional detention pond within the bounds of the proposed school tract. With those changes, the school district indicated that its concerns have been addressed. In its January letter, the Chatfield Community Association commented that the application does not meet approval criteria 403.03 and 403.04. In addition, it requested the board reconsider the road standards used in Sterling Ranch in light of wildfire and evacuation concerns. The applicant has provided a written response to all referral comments that is included within the staff report. The water appeal approval criteria and the applicant's water supply plan are discussed at length in the staff report. In 2021, the board approved the amended and restated Sterling Ranch water appeal, which allows the CAB to adopt its own water demand standards. The amended appeal requires that those standards be evaluated by the board as part of a specific development application. Such standards could also be retroactively applied to previously approved applications if requested. As part of this preliminary plan application, the CAB is proposing reduced water demand standards for specific residential use categories as identified in this table. In addition, the CAB is requesting that the water demand standards be applied retroactively to all previously approved Sterling Ranch filings. The existing water demand standards from the water appeal are included in the table as well for reference. The existing water demand standards would continue to apply if the proposed standards are not accepted by the board. The county's water consultant, the Applegate Group, provided an assessment of the reduced water demand standards requested by the CAB. Applegate notes its analysis of a selected set of large lot data is statistically identical to the analysis provided by the CAB's consultant, Element. In Applegate's opinion, the reduced water demand standards are supportable. Element recommended the CAB review the data every 2 years. However, the Applegate Group recommended the data be reviewed annually. Should the board find that the approval standards for the preliminary plan are met, the following proposed conditions should be considered for inclusion in its motion. Condition number 1, prior to recordation of each final plat within preliminary plan 7, the applicant shall provide payment in the amount of $1,500 per single-family detached unit to the Douglas County School District for capital mitigation. For multifamily dwelling units within the final plat, the applicant shall provide payment in the amount of $750 per unit to the Douglas County School District for capital mitigation prior to site improvement plan approval. Condition number 2, prior to recordation of each final plat within preliminary plan 7, the applicant shall provide payment to Douglas County for the pro rata share costs towards improvements to the state highway system in accordance with commitments set forth in Sterling Ranch PD. Condition number 3, Colorado Division of Wildlife literature shall be made available to both prospective homeowners and homebuyers concerning the possible presence of wildlife and shall be available at all times. Condition number 4, a burrowing owl survey shall be performed if any earth moving will begin between March 15th and October 31st. Condition number 5, technical corrections to the record copy of the preliminary plan exhibit shall be made to the satisfaction of Douglas County. And condition number 6, all commitments and promises made by the applicant or the applicant's representative during the public hearing and or agreed to in writing and included in the public record been relied upon by the Board of County Commissioners in approving the application. Therefore, such approval is conditioned upon the applicant's full satisfaction of all such commitments and promises. Section 405.08 of the subdivision resolution sets forth parameters for the board's determination on preliminary plan request, as noted on this slide. This concludes staff's presentation. I'm available to take questions at this time. Public Works Engineering staff is available, as well as the county's water consultant, Jared Daines from the Applegate Group, and also Rich Cosgrove from the school district.
Great, thank you, Brett. Any questions for staff?
I do have some questions, and Brett, I'm not sure if this first one is for you or engineering, but I'll just ask it. So it's on, the packet page is 129. It's under the section that's called Physical Site Characteristics. Under section B that says Access. And the bottom paragraph on that page says that the applicant has also provided non-standard right-of-way widths for commercial and multifamily streets adjacent to proposed super block lots within the preliminary plan. If it is determined that additional right-of-way is required to accommodate utilities and other constraints beyond what is depicted on this preliminary plan, such right-of-way changes could impact lots and tracts as proposed. Such changes would be identified and evaluated with subsequent final plats. So did you find where I'm talking about first?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Brad Jackson with Engineering Services. So that comment is in relation to, I don't know if you can see up on the screen, kind of what it says. Of course, it never wants to work when you need it. But if you look up where it says sheet 15 and sheet 20, that's Sterling Ranch Avenue that kind of goes east-west across the site. The applicant has provided, at least with the preliminary plan, 52 feet of right-of-way, and the county's typical roadway standard for commercial multifamily lots like that would be 60 feet. Engineering has agreed to kind of work with the applicant through the final plat process, depending on kind of what their future intent is for those lots. They did provide the correct right-of-way width for the street itself, but they narrowed up a little bit of the extra right-of-way that we would typically get for utilities kind of on the outside of the street. So we will continue to work with the applicant through the final plat to make sure that we get, any applicable utility corridors that we need to be able to serve the development.
Okay, so there will be time then through this process to fix that if it needs to be addressed, is what you're saying?
That's correct. Yep. And when they come through with the final plat, we'll have a little bit better idea as to what that super block is going to look like. And so we'll be better able to identify what we need for the utility corridor and make sure that with the final plat, we get any necessary easements or anything that we need to, serve the developments as we typically would.
Okay, great. Thank you, Brad. I appreciate that.
Yep.
So Brett, I wish that when I printed this off, it printed your packet number, not my packet number. My packet number is 134, and this is the area that's talking about Applegate's opinion and the water supply. And it says that the element recommended that the CAB review the data every 2 years. However, Applegate Group recommends the data to be reviewed annually. I think when you gave your presentation, you said that it will be reviewed annually if we approve the water standard change. So has that been agreed to, that it'll be an annual change instead of every other year?
The applicant agreed to that at the Planning Commission to make that commitment through 2025.
Okay. On that same page under water supply, as I read this, it indicates that the water for this project will, for the current request, Dominion is requesting the board find acceptable an additional 481 acre feet per year of Cherokee Ranch groundwater as part of the supply to Sterling Ranch. And then later on page 152, it says, to date, all water deliveries to Sterling Ranch have been 100% renewable. So does that mean that up till now, all the water used at Sterling Ranch has been renewable, but this project will use groundwater?
So far, the applicant has been able to serve all the units that it's built thus far with the renewable water supply. This is additional water that they can develop in the future if they need. So it's just additional supplies they're bringing forward. I think Dominion can talk about this. They have some plans to drill some wells on Cherokee Ranch, but I think it'd be better to have the applicant answer that.
Okay, that's great. Let me see if I have any others here. This one is a traffic one. And it is on page 356 of the packet. It's actually a response from Redland. And it looks like it's number 72 that says Roxborough Park Road. And it says the traffic analyses of future conditions with PP7 development are based on a closure of Roxborough Park Road at or north of the northern boundary of the preliminary plan. This scenario is not supported by the county. So is this road going to be closed? Has this been decided, and did I miss that answer in the packet? If I did, I apologize.
Brad Jackson with Engineering Services. Roxborough Park Road will not be closed. So that, I think maybe that was contemplated with the initial preliminary plan, but engineering identified that that road would have to remain open and that any improvements that were necessary would need to be made to that road from the preliminary plan boundary and Waterton Road on the south side all the way up to Titan Road on the north.
Okay, great. Thank you, Brad. That's my questions for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Further questions for staff?
Yeah, Brett, so the packet's quite a read, but it looks to me like it's still in compliance with the Sterling Ranch, the previously approved Sterling Ranch PD. I'm not seeing anything that's wild and crazy out of spec there. Am I correct, or can you identify an error in my judgment?
I think that would be correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have a couple of questions, but I'll reserve those following the applicant's presentation. If you'd like to come on up.
No, I'm okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Susan Beckman, SUSANBECKMAN, Entitlement Director for Sterling Ranch Development Company, 8155 Piney River Avenue, Suite 200, Littleton, Colorado, 80125. Thank you, Commissioners, for your time this afternoon, and thanks to the Douglas County Planning staff, Public Works and Engineering for their professionalism and hard work on preliminary plan number 7. I'd like to introduce the Sterling Ranch representatives with me today. Brock Smethels, President of the Sterling Ranch Development Company. My partner in entitlement, Eric Barney, Director of Engineering, Sterling Ranch Development Company. We have many from the Sterling Ranch community today. In case you have some very technical questions, we're hoping to answer them completely for you. We have Andrea Cole, Manager, Dominion Water and Sanitation District. Dominion is our wholesale water provider. Denise Hoganes, the General Manager from Sterling Ranch Community Authority Board. The CAB is the umbrella organization for the 7 metro districts in Sterling Ranch, and they are our retail water provider. Brian Hart, Professional Engineer from Redland. Cassie Slade, Principal, Fox Tuttle Transportation Group. Curtis Davidson, our Senior Landscape Architect for PCS Group, and Nathan Boyles, our special guest today, President, Metcalf Archaeological Consultant, and they did the big dig out at Sterling Ranch this summer. As I've mentioned before, Sterling Ranch has been the best-selling master plan community in the Denver metro area for the last 2 years, and even though the economy has dipped a little bit, we're hoping to hold that honor again this year. Just to have you set your bearings, because I know you approve a lot of development from all over the county, Sterling Ranch is 15 miles south of Denver, 4 miles south of C-470, and just approximately 1 mile west of Santa Fe. Of course, you know the other landmarks, Lockheed Martin. Let's see if the pointer is working. You know this map, Lockheed Martin, Chatfield State Park, and Roxborough State Park. So Sterling Ranch, just for an update, Sterling Ranch includes 3,400 total acres and an anticipated 1,300 acres of open space and 30 miles of interconnected trails at full build-out. We are an approved master plan development for 12,050 units. We have over 1,531 occupied homes and a total of 3,596 home sites already built, platted, or under development. Over 20 builders have been out in Sterling Ranch over the years. We have great employees out there. They've employed thousands of employees out in Sterling Ranch, and that's why we have such a diverse housing stock. We have single-family, multifamily townhomes, and multi-generational homes. Full build-out will be in about 20 years. So today, Sterling Ranch is requesting the approval of preliminary plan number 7. Last week, this preliminary plan was reviewed by the Douglas County Planning Commission and was approved unanimously. Preliminary Plan 7 is at the heart of the Sterling Ranch community. The site is north of Waterton Road, northeast of the Wildlife Corridor, and it's nestled between 2 regional parks, Heritage Regional Park and Burns Regional Park. I'm wondering, do you have one that does have a pointer? And it's very, okay, we'll work this. It just seems like it's, when I talk about data, I'll need it.
Susan, is that working, or should we get a different one?
You know, can you see it? It
Okay.
seems very,
Faint. Let me ask IT, do you have another pointer that might be a little brighter? Batteries.
I think when I start talking about data, that might help.
Yeah. As a father of three, we have to have so many AAA batteries. It's unbelievable in my house.
So preliminary plan 7 is at the heart of Sterling Ranch, right? You can see to the north is Providence Village that is almost built out, Ascent Village to the southeast, and then Prospect Village. We've got a lot of development happening in Prospect Village. So this preliminary plan is called the Legends Village. And we have Burns Regional Park to the east and Heritage Regional Park to the west. Preliminary Plan 7 is approximately 466 acres. It will have 1,667 units. Of those units, we will have 187 single-family detached units and 580 townhomes or duplexes. 5 superblock lots for future retail, commercial, and multifamily, and a future elementary school site. PP7 will be a positive addition to the community, to Douglas County, and to the Chatfield Basin. This afternoon, we'll be reviewing PP7 through the preliminary plan process, and we'll be analyzing and reviewing items such as the design, water and sanitation, wildlife habitat, the sources of required services, storm drainage, vehicular and pedestrian circulation, relationship of surrounding land uses, and conformance to the master plan. PP7 is a very large preliminary plan, so I've added a green check mark on all of the relevant slides so that when I talk about approval criteria from the Douglas County Subdivision Resolution, the Douglas County Comprehensive Plan, or the Sterling Ranch PD requirement, you will see a green check mark on that slide. The intent is to help organize the presentation in a way that you can feel comfortable that PP7 meets and exceeds all the approval criteria. PP7 complies with Douglas County 2040 Comprehensive Master Plan. We propose urban development in a designated urban area. This is located within the Chatfield urban area. It provides appropriate regional trails and significant open space. We maximize the efficient use of water. Our development supports long-term water supply planning, and we promote education about water, and we foster cooperation with our neighbors and other service providers. As required by the Sterling Ranch Plan Development, PP7 has developed a neighborhood plan that establishes planning areas, neighborhood types, and character zones. The PP7 neighborhood plan is within a village district. The other districts, I'm sure you remember, are countryside, which are much less dense, and town center, which is much more urban-like. The village district that we're talking about today is a very moderate density planning area. Each planning area in preliminary plan 7 has a character zone. So in preliminary plan 7, we have character zone 3, character zone 4, and character zone 5. The character zones set the limits of lot sizes, building heights, and density. So what's really important on this slide is that all the minimum lot size and building height requirements for each character zones have been met, and Sterling Ranch is not requesting additional density. Over 30% of PP7 is maintained as parks and open space. PP7 proposes approximately 157 dedicated parks and open space, acres, 157 acres of dedicated parks and open space. The dark green on the map is probably one of our greatest features, is Burns Burns Regional Park, and then we have the Heritage Regional Park that almost loops all the way around to Burns Regional Park. That is going to be almost 100 acres of regional park. The middle green is community park space and set aside for community recreational facility, and then the light green is multifunctional open space. As you know, all future parks, including the regional parks, development plans will go through a separate location and extent hearing process to get the Planning Commission's approval. Drainage. For this project, all the site's natural terrain, drainage ways, and riparian areas are preserved. Most notably is the East Willow Creek located on the south of the site. Down here. 4 detention and water quality ponds have been identified in accordance with the storm drainage design and technical criteria of both Douglas County Engineering and Mile High Flood District. So you can see the drainage ponds in blue. Sterling Ranch appreciates the support and partnership of the Douglas County School District, and we look forward to the first elementary school being built in our community in the next few years. We are supporting the bond initiative and the mill levy extension for the school district, and we want to thank Rich Cosgrove for being here today. He is the operation manager for the Douglas County School District, and we have a great relationship with the staff and have been working to really have some great school sites. So the Sterling Ranch Preliminary Plan 7 school site is in yellow. Our school sites are planned to be evenly distributed within the Sterling Ranch community boundary. To the northeast, filing number 1 is the blue site, and I know you're familiar with that. That's build ready. It has all the amenities, sidewalks, lighting, utilities ready for a school to be built. The red site to the southeast is a planned school district that was recently approved by the Board of County Commissioners. It's important to note that each one of these school sites is attached to a major transportation corridor and also connected to a neighborhood. These sites are all K-8, but they could be a public school, a neighborhood school, or a charter school. But that decision isn't up to Sterling Ranch. That decision rests with the Douglas County School Board. In addition to identifying school sites, Sterling Ranch Development has paid a voluntary capital mitigation fee of $1,500 for a single-family home and $750 for a multifamily home. And that has added, up to this point, $4 million of capital mitigation to the budget of the Douglas County School District. As was mentioned earlier, Sterling Ranch has agreed to make additional improvements to PP7 on the school site, and we really do appreciate the cooperation of the school district. And the Douglas County School District has sent a positive referral letter for the school site. So I'd like to point out Scott Springs Archaeological Site. I know that some of you have visited that site during the big excavation this summer. With significant funding from Sterling Ranch, Metcalf Archaeological Consultants and the State Historical Preservation Office have worked together over the last few years to create a plan to preserve and protect the artifacts in Scott Spring. The plan was executed this summer with a major excavation on the site. Metcalf has also been contracted by Sterling Ranch to develop educational materials that document the excavation and discuss the historical artifacts. These educational materials will tell the story of people and animals that made Sterling Ranch their home thousands of years ago. The educational materials and the collection of artifacts will be donated to the Douglas County Repository, and they can be shared with residents of Sterling Ranch, Douglas County schools, libraries, and even regional museums. The Douglas County Historic Preservation Division comment letter for PP7 is supportive of the cultural mitigation project and states that we meet the approval criteria. I've added red dots on this map of Sterling, the illustration of Sterling Ranch, to point out the regional transportation projects that have been built in this area or are underway. As you know, Waterton Road, and I hear that you've been out looking at Waterton Road recently, was financed by Douglas County. Thank you so much. It will be funded by repaying that financing by Sterling Ranch, and the construction has been managed by Douglas County. And it's my understanding that there will be a ribbon cutting on Friday and that it will be open on Friday. So that's really exciting. The widening of Moore Road to 4 lanes, funded by Sterling Ranch, constructed by Douglas County, will start construction next year. Other regional improvements in this area related to safety and capacity include Titan Road widening, that intersection of Titan Road and Moore Road, the Rampart Range intersection by Waterton Road. Of course, those were funded by Sterling Ranch. The Southern Connector, built by Douglas County, which is a great asset to deliver people from the Chatfield Basin and Lockheed Martin south to Highway 85. And then, of course, the recently approved Titan and Highway 85 bid that is going to improve the north ramp of that intersection, Titan Road and Highway 85. That's going to relieve a lot of the congestion in that area. Douglas County and Sterling Ranch should celebrate the partnerships on these regional projects. These projects are game changers for this region. In fact, the only referral comment from a community advocacy for PP7 was from the Chatfield Community Association. One of the concerns that they shared, and they have shared this concern for many years, is about being able to evacuate in case of wildfire. So an added plus of Waterton Road is not only that it's going to alleviate about 6,000 cars a day off of Rampart Range Road, but it provides a wildfire emergency access for the entire Chatfield Basin. South Metro Fire provides fire service for Sterling Ranch and has reviewed preliminary Plan 7 documents and have stated that they have no concerns. And Sterling Ranch is a good partner when it comes to funding regional and highway transportation projects. To date, we have put over $35 million into regional road improvements, some of those red dots, and like Waterton, and we have paid a voluntary regional transportation highway fee of almost $10 million to Douglas County to date to help with the Highway 85 transportation improvements. We're really happy to be able to partner with Douglas County on some of the amazing things they're doing on Highway 85. At full build-out, Sterling Ranch will contribute over $40 million in voluntary fees in today's dollars to the Highway 85 improvements. Our fee has an inflationary index, so this year it'll go up. Every year it goes up a lot, so that $40 million is in today's dollars, but that's going to be a substantial chunk of money that we are committing to regional projects and the Santa Fe Highway project. Oh, I'm going. Transportation connectivity within our community and connectivity with our neighbors. Sterling Ranch development, our roadways have been designed for safe vehicular, pedestrian, and bicycle connections. Safety of our roadways is a very important issue for us in Sterling Ranch because we do have so many pedestrians and so many bicyclists in our community and in our neighborhood. Our streets have been planned and designed to meet the Douglas County roadway design construction standards and the Sterling Ranch design standards that have been approved by Douglas County and South Metro Fire. I know, Commissioner Thomas, you had a question about the commercial property that we're working with engineering to decide if that will be a 60-foot road or a 52-foot wide right-of-way. We have some areas that we'd like to tour that are like Pearl Street, South Pearl or South Gaylord, that have more of an urban feel. This isn't going to be a big box shopping center. This is envisioned to have restaurants and dry cleaners and a bakery and coffee shops. And so like is outside of Sterling Ranch Center, and that we have the UC Health Center and a dentist office and Sterling Ranch Development Company and the Primrose Nursery. That road is actually a 50-foot right-of-way. We've been watching that. There's a lot of traffic there, but it seems to work really well. So we appreciate the engineering department's willingness to work with us to have a vision that is more urban-like feel instead of a big box-like feel. Now we're going to move to water. It's a very important part of Preliminary Plan 7. From the very beginning of our development, Sterling Ranch has taken very seriously the goals of the county's comprehensive plan to prolong the life of resources and to minimize how much water we use. Sterling Ranch, through technology, education, and intentional land planning, has successfully implemented a water demand plan that dramatically reduces the water consumption for their residents. The lower water use relative to its neighboring communities is explainable because our Sterling Ranch water demand management plan includes advanced technologies to communicate water use, water loss, water-efficient landscaping, smart irrigation control system, dual water metering that provides real-time feedback about water usage, incentives for customers to manage their outdoor water use, efficient fixtures and appliances, drought-tolerant plant selections and landscape guidelines, and an implementation of a water demand management versus the outdated philosophy of water conservation. Through our community's design and technology that empowers our residents to easily and without paying lower their water consumption, Sterling Ranch has substantially less water use than what is required. So I'd like to point out that currently the Douglas County water demand standard is at 0.75 acre-feet per unit per year. In 2013, we had a water appeal, and our water standard was set at 0.40 acre-feet per year per unit. During that water appeal, there was a requirement that we collect data, so we have been collecting data since the first resident moved in to Sterling Ranch. So our water demand standard isn't based on some anecdotal assumption, but it's based on real data that has been collected over many years. Because of our data that was trending lower every year, last year we submitted a 2021 water appeal to the Douglas County Planning Commissioners and to the Board of County Commissioners, and it was unanimously approved by both boards. Thank you. This water appeal did not establish specific water demand standards. Whether it allowed the Sterling Ranch Community Authority Board the ability to establish the community's own water demand standard for review and approval within the next land use application by in front of the BOCC. So that is why this is being brought forward in Preliminary Plan 7. We would have brought it forward much sooner, but Preliminary Plan 7 is a very large preliminary plan, and we've been working on it through the last year. For this specific water demand standard reduction request, the Community Authority Board engaged Element Water consultants to analyze the Sterling Ranch's community water usage from 2018 to 2021. I want to go back on this slide. So we are going to be asking for the new water demand standard. We'll talk a little bit more about this in the next few slides, but 0.26 acre-feet per year per unit for single-family detached homes, 0.17 acre-feet per year per unit for attached townhomes and duplexes, and 0.14 for multifamily that is just indoor use. For the specific water demand standard reduction, the Community Authority Board engaged Element Water consultant to analyze the Sterling Ranch community water usage from 2021 to 2018 to 2021. The analysis included outdoor water usage and indoor water usage. It did an assessment during in response to COVID 2020 because everyone was home and we knew that people would be using more water. Water uses versus our water budgets and weather influences, and also when a lot of the landscaping was being established and we knew that that would take more water. Element also compared the water use data to other local communities and statewide water users to kind of benchmark our numbers. Sterling Ranch's raw water use data and the element analysis from 2018 to 2021 was then sent to the Douglas County Water Consultant Applicate Group Incorporated. That is what was required by the Water Appeal 2021. Applegate analyzed and reviewed for accuracy 450 monthly data points and over 5,000 total data points to confirm the accuracy of the water use data and to confirm the accuracy of the assumptions made by the Sterling Ranch water reduction when requesting the water demand standards reduction. So they confirmed the accuracy of our data and the accuracy of our assumption made by the Sterling Ranch CAB and our data that we could ask for these reduced water demand standards. So on this chart, you see what our average water use actually is. You see the water demand standard, what we are asking for, and then the factor of safety. So for a single family detached large, our actual use is 0.208. What we're asking for is 0.26, and we have a factor of safety of 25%, so that if we have variabilities in the weather or drought, that we can easily handle that kind of fluctuation. For a single family detached or single family attached is 0.17. Our actual use is 0.13. That's a 30% factor of safety. And for multifamily, we're asking for 0.14. That will be indoor use only. So why is this important for the Sterling Ranch community to get approval to use a lower water demand standard? Because we are actually using less water. Because it will save our residents millions of dollars in water rates and prevent millions of dollars of unnecessary water system infrastructure to be built. And of course, that ends up being paid for by ratepayers. It will keep the cost of our water taps down so that our builders can build more affordable, attainable housing for those that work and live in Douglas County. And I know that's very, very important to the board to have attainable housing in Douglas County. The Water Appeal 2021 requires that for the Community Authority Board water demand standard to be approved, we must meet the following criteria. The proposed water must be used for the proposed use. Our water is going to be used for residential use. The reliability of our renewable water rights are deemed sufficient by the county, and they have been deemed sufficient. And the proposed water supply is adequate and feasible to ensure shortages will not occur during a drought period. And that is what the safety factor is all about. So we have met all those criteria. And the Douglas County Water Consultant, Applegate Group, says that we have fulfilled the approval standards pursuant to Section 3 of the amended and reinstated Sterling Ranch Water Appeal. To meet, back to preliminary plan 7, that was about the water appeal request. We must meet 18A Water Supply Overlay District approval criteria. So we need to have a signed wholesale water and wastewater cumulative service letter from our wholesale water provider, Dominion, and that is in your water packet. We must have a signed retail will serve letter from the Community Authority Board, Water and Sanitation Sewer Service for Sterling Ranch. We have that, and that is in your packet. We must also have approval from the state water engineer and the Douglas County Water Consultant. Colorado Division of Water Resource Water Engineer and the Douglas County Water Engineer Applegate Group have confirmed that there is sufficient supply of water for the Sterling Ranch community, that the water sources meet the 70% renewal requirement, and that we meet all approval standards for Preliminary Plan 7. So we meet both the approval criteria for the 2021 water appeal and for the Preliminary Plan 7. And the water repeal is for the reduction of the water standard. Wastewater. Our wastewater treatment will be provided by Dominion via Roxborough Water and Sanitation District conveyance infrastructure delivered to the South Platte Renew Water Treatment Facility, and in the future will be treated at Dominion's Chatfield Basin Water Reclamation Facility. So we meet that criteria. And to close, Sterling Ranch is a beautiful, safe, and sustainable community. PP7 is an extension of the Sterling Ranch vision. PP7 meets all the legal requirements and exceeds all the approval standards required. And I'd just like to go over the approval standards quickly. PP7 conforms to 40301 preliminary and conforms with the goals, objectives, and policies of the 2040 Comprehensive Plan. Like I said before, we propose urban development in a designated urban area. 40302, Preliminary Plan 7 addresses all the design elements established in Article 4, Section 404. So we've talked today about the conformity of lot size, safe and convenient vehicular, pedestrian, and bicycle connections. Safety is really important to Sterling Ranch. We avoid and mitigate geologic hazards and erosion. It complements other Sterling Ranch filings. Street and drainage are designed to meet all applicable standards. The natural terrain and riparian areas are protected. And we have protected the archaeological artifacts, and we're very proud of that effort with Metcalf. 40303, Preliminary Plan 7 conforms with Section 18A Water Supply Overlay District of the zoning resolution, and we've gone in depth with that. Those letters that we comply both with the .4 current standard and with the new .26, .17, and .14 standard. 403.04, Preliminary Plan provides for public wastewater collection and treatment system, and 404.05 identifies all areas that might involve hazardous soil conditions, and we have submitted a soil report to the county to address some of the soil expansion that happens in Sterling Ranch. 40406 provides adequate drainage improvements. Public Work has approved the Phase 2 drainage report. 40407 provides adequate transportation improvements with improvements that provide safe travel for all roadway users in Sterling Ranch. We have a really great partnership with Douglas County, and we appreciate it very much. We've done a lot of work out there, and there's a lot more to come in the future. 40309 has availability of necessary services. Fire services will be provided with South Metro Fire District. Douglas County Sheriff Office will provide police protection. Utility services will be provided by Xcel Energy, and of course, our education services will be provided by the Douglas County School Districts. So I want to thank you, Commissioners, for your time this afternoon. Sterling Ranch respectfully requests your approval of the updated water demand standard for Sterling Ranch development for PP7 and the previously approved filings, and also the approval of Preliminary Plan 7.
Ms. Beckman, thank you very much for that thorough presentation. That is greatly appreciated, and I love this photo of the cattle drive. Congratulations on your really successful cattle drive. What a nice signature event.
So, Commissioner, that was last year when those were the good cows. This year we had the longhorns, and they were very ornery, and in the words of Harold Smithels, never again.
Oh, so just do and done.
They didn't follow the crowd very well, but it was a good time had by all that were there. Thank you.
That's great. Any questions for the applicant?
I wait till after.
I actually do have a question. So Commissioner Thomas brought up earlier, how was noted in the packet that Dominion does own the groundwater rights beneath Cherokee Ranch. And so we had to establish where that stands with renewable water resourcing for Sterling Ranch. I wonder if we could ask perhaps a Dominion representative to explain what is the purpose of owning that groundwater resource when all water that is used in Sterling Ranch seems to be renewable sourcing.
Commissioner, may I call up Andrea Cole from Dominion to answer that question?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Andrea Cole, C-O-L-E. I'm the General Manager for Dominion Water and Sanitation District. We're located at 9250 East Castilla Avenue, Suite 315 in Greenwood Village. And I very much appreciate the question both raised by Commissioner Thomas as well as Commissioner Teal regarding our water supply portfolio and whether it's renewable or not. And I believe this graphic helps explain this a little bit better. So to date, all water supply deliveries have been from Strontia Springs through the Rampart system directly to the Roxborough Water Treatment Plant. So that water is 100% renewable in nature. Dominion is building a conjunctive use supply. And what that means is that our system is built on renewable water supplies, but in times of hydrologic variability, drought conditions, we utilize groundwater to help firm those supplies. In addition, because we have wise water coming into the system, 1,325 acre feet of wise water, as we all know, wise is interruptible in nature and needs to be backed by a firmed source, which is also where our groundwater comes into play at Cherokee Ranch. I also want to note that Dominion is committed to being 70% renewable at full build-out. So there is a portion of the groundwater supply at Cherokee Ranch that will be used as part of our conjunctive use system as Sterling Ranch continues to build out. But again, we will meet or exceed the 70% renewable goal and as a conjunctive use system. And as Jeanette pointed out, Dominion is currently in the process of drilling our first well at Cherokee Ranch. We have completed or are about to complete the road work at that site, and well construction should start in the next week.
So right now, you are, your use for Sterling Ranch is 100% renewable, but you do have the groundwater supply at Cherokee Ranch as a safety valve, as a water bank in times of, it sounds like extreme need, if we're talking need to, if the sources are interrupted.
That's correct. So we have evaluated our water supply portfolio. We've done Monte Carlo simulations on it to determine how, how that varies, right, based on different conditions that we're seeing and as we continue to see as we move forward. And so that allows us to effectively plan when and how much of that groundwater source we need to back those supplies should it be an extreme drought.
I think that's my question.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Teal. So we heard a little bit more about the demand standard from the independent water consultant from Element, or from your water consultant. Let me ask staff, is that independently verifiable? Were you able to review some of the information from Element?
The water information was that Element, the data that Element had was provided to our water consultant, Applegate.
Yeah.
And they reviewed it, confirmed it. provided a letter that stated the lower demand standard was supportable.
Reviewed and confirmed. Okay, great.
We do have Jared Danes here from Applegate if you have more detailed questions.
Anything inconsistent with what we heard from staff? No? Okay, great. The only other question I had was, in the staff report, there was a comment from the Chatfield Community Association around their impression that the application does not meet the approval criteria of 40303 and 40304. I think it was interesting, the response, and I think it's fairly well stated that Dominion provided a response stating that the 1,325 acre-feet of Wisewater has firming sources. In addition, Dominion clarified the IGA with Roxborough has capacity of up to a total of 4,000 EQRs. Is there anything additional that you wanted to state with regard to the Chatfield Community Association comment?
Commissioner, could we just have a minute to have
Sure.
it so that we get
Yep.
you a concise answer?
Yeah, and it's 40303 and 40304, and I know you presented.
Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate it. Andrea Cole again. As far as wastewater is concerned, Dominion does own a discharge permit at the Chatfield Basin Water Reclamation Facility. Currently, our wastewater is conveyed to the South Platte Renew facility, and there is adequate capacity within the system to continue to convey that wastewater to that facility. Should at such time that demands warrant, Dominion will reactivate our permit with CDPHE, and we will have a wastewater treatment plant at that site.
Okay, great, thank you. I don't have any additional questions either for staff or the applicant. Let me just see if the board has anything else. Okay.
Nothing here.
Okay, let me, oh, you do, okay.
So these are in regard to the water standard. Can you tell me how the reduced water standard will benefit your residents?
It will benefit, Commissioner Thomas, thank you for that question. One of our concerns about having a higher water demand standard is the requirement to build larger infrastructure that is not needed in both our water and also wastewater, because if you lose less water, you use less wastewater, because sometimes it's not efficient. We have wastewater pipes that are not efficient because they're too large, and we're familiar with the Eastern Regional Pipeline that is not going to be needed for many, many, many years because we were held to a higher water demand standard. So if we can reduce the amount of infrastructure that needs to be built because we are providing very high quality of life with a lower water standard, then our rates will be less than what they would be if we were required to build a much larger infrastructure.
So you're asking for this to be retroactive?
Yes.
The standard to be retroactive. So will your ratepayers that are currently there receive lower rates then, if this is approved?
This will be, Commissioner Thomas, thank you for the question. They go through a rate study every year at the Community Authority Board to set rates. So it will either be limiting the increase of rates, which it may be because everything is getting more expensive, or a lowering of rates, but they review that every year. And I'm going to bring up Denise Hoganes, if that is fine, Commissioners, to answer how they are setting the rates.
Good evening, Commissioners. Denise Hoganes, Hogenes. We are at 9350 Roxborough Park Road. I'm the General Manager for the Sterling Ranch Cab. To answer your question, Commissioner Thomas, we don't necessarily anticipate a reduction of rates, but we will continue to do annual rate studies. And what we anticipate may happen is instead of continuing to drive rates and increase them, we would have the ability to forego increases in the future. So we don't necessarily foresee at this point, because much of our infrastructure is already in the ground that we have to support. And we already have secured water from Dominion that we also have to support with our current rates. But what this would enable us to do is to make sure that we don't have to keep driving rates up in order to support infrastructure and water procurement that we're not using.
Thank you. So if this board approves this and you drop the water available to the limit of 0.26 and then the others for the residences that don't have outdoor watering needs, what happens if you suddenly don't have enough water? Then what will happen?
On the slide, we showed a factor of safety of 25% at the minimum. Some of the factors of safety were much, much higher. And so what will happen is that factor of safety would kick in. And then Andrea could probably speak to some of the water that we have availability to firm what she provides to us.
Thank you.
Sorry, Brett, can you pull up? Brett's going to get good at going back and forth. Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Appreciate the question. So I think this graphic helps illustrate that. So these are our different water supply portfolios that Dominion has and is available to meet our commitments at Sterling Ranch. The green here, this is the demand standard of 0.4. And so you can see that there is sufficient water within the 0.4 demand standard. This is the reduced demand standard, and we used an average of 0.24 for that. So we've added additional conservatism into the water demand standards that the Community Authority Board has adopted to allow for some additional planning and conservancy. So you can see that that significantly reduces that water. And then what I really want to point out is this black line. And this black line is actual usage. And so you can see in that data that it's even further below the demand standard. And we get this data on a monthly basis from Sterling Ranch, and we provide it to our water consultant, and they plot this for us routinely so that we can track where we are on our water supply portfolio. And to further address the question, for planning purposes, we tie these stacks and these demand portfolios with projects. And so if we do see that this is ticking up or we do see some concerns there, we would advance a project forward to allow us to bring more water to the residents in Sterling Ranch.
Thank you. If I recall, there was, I think it was a commitment early on that Sterling Ranch would become, Dominion would become a regional water provider and provide water to other districts. If this is approved, would that help you provide water to more districts?
So Dominion continues to evaluate our available water supply such that we don't injure our existing commitments, which includes Sterling Ranch and the commitments that we continue to honor and evaluate for the communities of Leviers, Sedalia, and Thunderbird. As we continue to evaluate those water supplies, as Sterling Ranch continues to grow into their water supply portfolio, we'll time projects such that we'll evaluate and determine if there is available water for other users. We're currently in the process of revising, and the board will ratify our rules and regs for Dominion that will outline that process.
So would it be possible for you to provide water to the range in the future?
If there is water available to provide and they meet all of our rules and regulations and payments are made, then water could be made available.
Because when I look at this difference from 0.4 to 0.26, that's almost half of what you have to provide now. And so I hope you can tell that I read the packet thoroughly, because this really is a big decision when most, if I understand this, most of the builders, the developers in Douglas County, according to the slide that Ms. Beckman showed, have to prove up 0.75. You're already at 0.4 and you're asking to drop to 0.26. So there's a lot of people watching this, and I just need to make sure that if I vote for this, that I'm not leaving your residents in a position where they're going to turn on their tap one day and not have water.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's important is that this is really a snapshot. This does not include the full build-out of Sterling Ranch. And there are additional water supplies that we will be bringing online. Again, it's a timing of projects and how we make the rates and the fees for the end users and the residents of Douglas County attainable and affordable. And that also feeds into attainable housing within Sterling Ranch. And so what you don't see on here is our return flows that we'll be bringing back into our system once we have our wastewater treatment plant operational and our river intake. And so that is additional waters that will be brought on to help deliver water to our customers. Again, our first priority is our existing commitments. So any extra water can only be provided without injury to our existing commitments, which includes Sterling Ranch, Lavier, Sedalia, and Thunderbird.
So if I don't totally understand the wastewater project for Highway 85, but do I understand that the wastewater flows will go back to Castle Rock?
So we have agreed that a portion of our wastewater flows will be conveyed through the Highway 85 corridor to the Plum Creek Water Reclamation Authority. Right now, that's around 1,500 equivalent residents within Sterling Ranch and about 125,000 gallons a day. That wastewater will help push the wastewater from Lavier's to Plum Creek. Without that wastewater, the system would go septic, and there would be a lot of very angry residents along the Santa Fe corridor. So we've agreed to help that process. What that also does is it allows us to have access to return flows sooner. And we're working in negotiations currently with Castle Rock to potentially lease some of those return flows to Castle Rock and make available to the residents in that community until such time we need them within our system.
So Andrea, will you have flows going, is it to Inglewood and to Castle Rock both, and the wastewater that from Sterling Ranch?
Today, it's all timing, right? Today, they would primarily go to Plum Creek Water Reclamation Authority. Again, that's the existing 1,500 homes. As homes continue to be occupied, and as Sterling Ranch builds the, for example, the multifamily at 3A, 324, those wastewaters will go to South Platte Renew.
Is that Inglewood?
Yes, sorry, by cities.
Okay. I think the goal is to have as much of this water stay here since it can be reused to extinction.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Okay, any further questions or comments from the board?
I don't think so. That was a really great conversation there.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So let me just confirm with the applicant, are you comfortable with the 6 conditions as presented? If you want to just state that for the record, somebody.
Commissioner, may I ask you to repeat that question?
Sure, Ms. Beckman. So just want to confirm that the applicant is okay with the 6 conditions as presented.
Yes, are we going to have public testimony?
We are going to open it up for
Okay.
citizen comment after
Okay.
you answer the question.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yes, we are.
You are? Okay,
Yes.
thank you very much. So with that, I'll open it up for any citizen comment, either in person or online. Is there any citizen comment?
Commissioner, I have no online comment.
Okay, thank you, Troy. And with that, I'll close citizen comment and bring it back to the board for any further discussion and/or a motion.
Well, I'll go ahead and kick it off and just say, I mean, I do really appreciate our colleague Commissioner Thomas's questions pertaining to water management. There's oftentimes that I think I often take questions for granted because of my experience on the Castle Rock Town Council managing a municipal water system, supervising a municipal water system from the council, and oftentimes forget that some of the ins and outs of water management in a Western environment are just not well known, not commonly known. I really appreciate the deliberative water planning that we've seen from both Dominion, working with the Sterling Ranch CAB in order to ensure that, as Commissioner Thomas said, that the residents would be insured in their water reliability. Definitely appreciate. Obviously, I was on the Castle Rock Council when the decision was made to sell Castle Rock's water rights at Cherokee Ranch to Dominion, and I thought that was a wise move, and it wasn't a unanimous decision, by the way. We did have a bit of a contentious discussion on that because water is life in this environment, and there were members of the Castle Rock Council that really felt like, well, we were giving up a valuable resource that we could make use ourselves, but I appreciate Dominion realizing the value of that resource for the good people of Castle Rock. But at the same time, now we know it's a water bank for the people of Sterling Ranch, a practice that we see practiced at Parker Water, by Castle Rock Water, and actually numerous water districts around the Denver metro area and really around the state. Having gone through the data, and it made for a wonderful evening reading material, so it took me a few evenings to get through it. It does look like we've got a sound assessment going on here. And so I feel pretty confident not only in the approval of preliminary plan number 7, but I also feel very confident in the approval of the revised demand standard. I think Sterling Ranch is really on the cutting edge of water conservation, but as was pointed out in the presentation, in water planning here in our environment. So if it does please the board, I do have a motion to approve the Sterling Ranch preliminary plan number 7 because it does meet all the approval criteria with 6 conditions as presented. Project file is SB 2021-057.
I'll second that, and I'd like to make comments.
Please.
I read this extensively, and the information in the packet supports the approval. I still have concerns, but because the information in the packet supports the approval, I will be supporting this.
Well, thank you, Commissioners, for your comments and your thoughtful review. It's intense labor to go through these packets, and I know both of you are very diligent in reviewing all of this critical information. No doubt, water in the West remains of significant concern to all of us, particularly in Douglas County. We've had some very robust discussions for many years, and certainly most recently around this particular corridor. I know that this is certainly different than maybe what we've seen in the past, but in my review of the packet, I do believe that all of the approval criteria have been met as well, and I think the packet supports that. I want to compliment the work of staff as well in terms of the staff's review of all of this additional information. So again, I don't have any additional questions. I think it's an ongoing partnership with our home building community that is based on trust, and I think Sterling Ranch has certainly demonstrated that, as well as all of the approval criteria we've asked for today. Any further discussion? Okay, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do want to clarify, because we had some confusion in the Planning Commission and we're having some discussion here, that the motion includes the water demand standard reduction, PP7, and the water reduction for all previous Sterling Ranch filings, so that for consistency, it covers the entire development. And I just want to clarify that so that there isn't confusion later on. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Beckman, and I'll just restate the motion as I heard it from Commissioner Teal. It was a motion to approve the Sterling Ranch Preliminary Plan number 7 because it does meet all of the approval criteria with the 6 conditions as presented.
I guess it would probably be a good question for County Council. Is there a need to revise? Because the approval of the demand standard and the retroactive nature of the approval kind of was inherent to the packet, but should that be restated in the motion?
You certainly are welcome to restate that in the motion if you want. We believe that the request here from the applicant is for that. And so if you approve this application as it's been requested, that is part of what you're approving. We don't have the motion specifically laying that out, and I know we've deviated from the normal course here. Normally, we don't have the applicant comment again once the motion is presented, but in this case, because the applicant only asked for a clarification of the motion itself and offered no additional testimony, I think we could go forward with the motion that is currently on the table unless there's any objections by any of the commissioners to that. If there are no objections, I think you can carry forward. It is up to you if you want to reword the motion. I do not think you have to do so to get the approval that has been clarified.
Well, based on the advice of Council Chair, I'd just say that, for the record, that my motion was inclusive of, based upon the presentation by staff and presentation in the staff packet, it was indeed inclusive of the amendment to the demand standard and making that retroactive for planning purposes into the future.
Thank you, Commissioner Teal, for that clarification on the record. We do have a first and second on the floor. And seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
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 And that carries 3-0. Congratulations. And with that, our next land use meeting public hearing will be held on Tuesday, October 25th, 2022 at 2:30 p.m. Thank you very much.